WCB Podcast, your source for all things Chicago Blackhawks and everything hockey. With your host, let's do it, Jarom, Tanner, and Nolly.
Welcome to another edition of the WCB Podcast, a part of the Hockey Podcast Network presented by DraftKings and Raycon. It is Jarom. It's just me solo right now. We are doing something a little bit different for the next few weeks here. On Mondays, we're going to start doing what we're going to call Memory Monday. What we're going to do on Memory Monday is we are going to post previous interviews that we've done through our time doing this show. We've had some amazing guests on the show, Hockey Hall of Famers, Stanley Cup champions, actors, comedians, and a lot of it happened before our fan base kind of really grew. So I think a lot of you might have missed some of these awesome interviews. So we just want to run it back and just let everybody tune in and see what we talked to. A lot of these are going to be, especially Chicago guys, you're going to love some of these interviews. For example, this first one, we are going to go with Brandon Bollig. This interview was originally done on September 30th, 2019. We talked about his opinion on St. Louis on playing for Chicago, his days as a child actor, and that incredible video that he did in response to Patrick Kane's stick handling video. It's a great interview, and I really hope you enjoy it. Again, we will probably be doing this every Monday up until probably the start of the season. We do have a bunch of awesome interviews that we've done. And if there's any of these guys you like and you want to hear some updates from them, let us know who you want to see back on the show. So now let's tune into Brandon Bollig's interview.
All right, special guest joining us today. We're sticking with the Bees with former Blackhawk player, former Stanley Cup champion in 2013, former CPHL champion. We're going to discuss which one is more important to him. Native of Missouri, Brandon Bollig joins the show. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on, man.
No problem, fellas. Thanks for having me.
We're extremely excited to have you on. So with you, I mean, I know for me personally, when you first joined the Blackhawks, I saw that you were coming from Missouri, and I was like, oh God, we got a Blues fan on the Hawks now. What are we gonna do with this guy? What was the hockey like in Missouri when you were growing up, and kind of comparing it to where it's at now? I mean, obviously the Blues had just won the Stanley Cup, so it's kind of booming right now. But what was the hockey like when you were a kid?
That's a pretty awesome question. I've done a number of these, and nobody's really ever asked that, like the progression of St. Louis hockey. So yeah, growing up just outside St. Louis, I'm from a town called St. Charles. Anyway, yeah, I the only other way to put it, I guess, for hockey when I was growing up was pretty non-existent. There weren't too many options. There were surely no real competitive, like AAA travel type of options. Actually, I was right at that perfect age when I was in middle school. I don't know, 6th, 7th grade, whatever it was, when they first opened, like they're pretty much the first AAA program there in Missouri. And I tried out and I'm making it and played for that organization for a couple of years. But back then there was one option that was considered AAA. Now it seems like they have a ton, and I think it was maybe 2 years ago, whatever the draft was that like Clayton Keller was a part of. I'm pretty sure and Matthew Chuck, who I ended up meeting and getting to know in Calgary a bit, but I want to say 4 of the top 15 picks were all St. Louis kids, and which is pretty awesome to see. I was undrafted myself, so it's pretty awesome to see how far St. Louis hockey has come. And like I said, it went from one AAA program when I was right at the perfect age, and then now they have a number of them, and they're competing on the national level. And like I said, having multiple players drafted super high in the NHL from that area is awesome to see. And that's all because, at least growing up, like, my infatuation came from obviously the Blues, and just seeing them do well with, like, say, back then they had Brett Hull and Brendan Shanahan and Curtis Joseph and those type of guys, and Tony Twist, who I ended up getting to know later on, who's a tough guy. But anyway, now, yeah, obviously seeing them win the Stanley Cup and knowing how crazy the city was for for that organization, and having never done it before, and having the Cardinals really be the belle of the ball there in St. Louis for a number of years, and now seeing St. Louis do so well. And they just built a beautiful new facility, their practice facility, and kind of a community ice rink deal there in St. Louis that just opened up. And so it's pretty awesome to see where it's come, and it's come a long way. And like I said, a number of programs that kids have the option to try out for now, and it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of those guys seem to stick around that area too. It sounds like a lot of them stuck around or coaching too. So I feel like that's definitely helping the development down in that area.
There's a ton actually of retired, not only hockey players, but retired football guy when the Rams were there, retired Rams players, retired Cardinals, and retired Blues players that stick around, like you said. And, it's the suburbs of St. Louis are nice. I wouldn't consider downtown necessarily a super nice area by any means, but it definitely has, it's got its bright spots down there, but the suburbs are nice. The cost of living is low, and then, it's Midwestern weather, but yeah, you got some good options as far as sports teams, restaurants, that type of thing. So yeah, you get a lot of guys that retire there, and like you said, like Al McInnes, Keith Kachuk, those type of guys, Brett Hall, all those guys end up retiring there, and then their kids grow up, they end up playing, and end up making it like Kachuk's kid, and McInnes has a kid or two, I think that's at the pro level now too. So it's pretty cool to see, because I remember those guys when I was younger. I remember those kids that were super young at the time, and obviously knowing their dads and knowing the name it's pretty cool to see how they progress and all that. So.
Yeah.
So with you being a St. Louis native, then growing up, did you hate the Blackhawks as much as Blackhawk fans hate the Blues, or how did that go?
It's pretty wild. I actually didn't, oddly enough. So I was a Blues fan growing up, no doubt. And then when I was in college, and after my sophomore year of college, the Hawks, after my freshman year, the Hawks invited me to their development camp, and I ultimately did well, and they continued to scout me that entire next season, my sophomore year. And ultimately after that season, I had, I guess, shown them enough to where they offered me a contract, and I took it. So obviously from that point, probably from the time they invited me to development camp, my allegiance definitely shifted over to them, and the Blues were kind of just a team I used to like, I guess. But it's pretty crazy, because growing up, we have a pool in our backyard. I had this Blackhawks towel that I used all the time. My old man does flooring. That's what, he's done flooring my whole life, and he'll make, install floors, but he also makes like area rugs. And he thought, I guess when I was younger, I was so young, I don't remember him ever even making it, but my entire childhood growing up, there was a Hawks Indian head carpet. Like, he made it out of carpet, all different pieces of carpet, pieces them together, and made this area rug of this Blackhawks Indian head. We still have it actually in our basement, which is funny. But randomly, just because he thought the logo looked cool, and for whatever reason decided to make it. So we had a couple other things. Like, for the longest time, because of, I was at a Blues game, was a huge Brett Hall fan, and his dad, Bobby Hall, was there all the time. And when I was a kid, I got to meet him, and he signed a little mini hockey stick, but it was a Blackhawks mini hockey stick, and signed it to me and all that stuff. So I had random Hawk stuff in my house growing up, and it was kind of weird, because again, like, I was a big Blues fan. I remember watching all kinds of Blues games growing up, but then it was kind of funny, once I ultimately signed with the Hawks, and then, obviously ended up playing for them and all that. It was just funny. We still have the beach towel, we still have the area rug, and I still have that little hockey stick that Bobby Hall gave me. So it's pretty wild to have had all that. And surely when I signed with the Blackhawks, I got a lot of crap from my family and friends, and I heard it a million times. And when we were coming to town and play the Blues, it was, I'm not rooting for the Blackhawks, but I'll root for you. I'm like, that's fine. That's all I can ask for, or whatever. But so it was pretty awesome. Obviously I actually got to play the Blues my fourth ever NHL game, and we got to play in St. Louis. And so I was absolutely fired up for that. I mean, I was fired up because I'd only been in the NHL for like a week at this point, but my whole, my first game was at the United Center. I was pretty stoked about that. And then we had a few others in between, but I knew on the schedule was coming up in St. Louis. And I'm like, man, all I want is just to stick around long enough to be able to play in St. Louis. And it'd be so sweet. Ultimately, I did. And actually, Ryan Reeves and I fought first shift, like right off the bat. I maybe played 3 seconds of hockey before we actually ended up fighting it.
Welcome home.
It was awesome, man. I had probably 15 buddies there, a bunch of family, and I had to get that fight out of the way so I could focus on actually playing hockey. But man, I was fired up. We had a long fight. That was probably one of our better fights. I fought him like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times probably, but that was probably one of our best. And it was awesome, man, because it was back in my hometown, you know, for the very first time, first shift. All my boys were there. It was pretty sweet.
So what I got out of that is every Blues fan is a closet Hawks fan. That's what you're trying to say,
go.
right?
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's how I heard.
There you go.
So did you end up winning that fight against Reeves? I mean, you had to be buzzing.
Yeah. I was buzzing. Him and I always had pretty awesome fights. We matched up pretty well together. That guy, to putting it lightly, is a handful, man. Like, he is a long, strong dude. Yeah. Along with pretty much everyone else that I fought, unfortunately. But he, him and I just seemed to, being with Hawks and Blues, we played each other all the time. There was that pretty awesome rivalry that had, dated back forever, as you guys know. And then one of the years that it was 2014, actually. I think we played them in the first round. So I got to play them in playoffs too, which was pretty sweet. So, during the playoffs, you get to spend a little more time in whatever city whatever team you're playing, you get to spend a bit more time in that city. So playing them in the regular season was awesome, but then getting to do it in the postseason and playoffs, which is just a whole new animal in hockey, was super awesome for me.
How did your family take, knocking them out of the playoffs on their home ice?
Yeah. So my immediate family was all my family was, again, stoked for me. My immediate family were, they quickly switched to Blackhawks, but my extended family, all my grandma, all my cousins, all that, they're still huge Hawks fans. So I think probably my grandma and my parents were the only three that were stoked about it, and the others, I think, were kind of choked at us. But it's all good. I was perfectly fine pissing them off for dancing in the playoffs.
I was gonna say, man, if your grandma's not on your side, that's gonna be tough.
No, my parents, my grandma, and maybe my sister. I'm not even sure about that. She'd probably have a different answer than I do. So.
How did it feel, talking about the playoffs, how did it feel, first NHL goal, being in the playoffs?
So that was pretty wild. I saw that Zach sent me those questions, and that was pretty crazy, man. So if you ever go look at my stats, it's nothing to write home about by any means. But so my call-up year, I want to say it was the last 18 games. So once the trade deadline hit, the Hawks actually traded away John Scott. And I remember, even when they did that, I still had zero idea they were planning to call me up. I was pretty stoked. I was expecting, okay, hopefully next year I might have a shot at playing a couple games. Well, no joke, an hour later, I got the call saying I was coming up. And so anyway, I finished the year, played every game the rest of the way there. I had 0 points. And then it was second. So we played that year, first round, we played Phoenix, and got my first game. I played game 1. Awesome. Felt pretty good. No points or whatever. But as far as playoff hockey goes, a guy like me is a little more valuable come playoff time with, playing that type of role and laying the body on guys and things like that. So second game, I oddly enough came down and wired a shot from fairly far out. I think it was probably a little bit past the top of the circle. And I don't know if there was just a bit of a screen from the D-man, or I'm going to say it wasn't tipped by anyone. So I ended up squeaking one. I ended up squeaking one by Mike Smith. And I was actually pretty shocked that even happened. I was beyond stoked. And so then played the rest of the game. I almost had a couple more goals that game. I was absolutely flying after that. So I probably should have focused a little more on that than fighting throughout my career. But no, it was the coolest feeling. But the funny thing is, and then I guess to go for the funny, so I ended up scoring that goal. That was my first, I guess, playoff or NHL goal and point. But as you guys know, the playoff points and none of that counts. So playoff games don't really count the same as as regular season. It's really really a totally separate, stat sheet. So then the following year is the year 2013. That was during the lockout, and then once the lockout ended, myself, Andrew Shaw, and Nick Leddy came up from Rockford and stayed the rest of the year, and that was the year we won the cup. So that whole year, again, 0 points, fellas. I know it's tough to believe, but zero points. And then the next year, our very first game. So the next year, 2014, I had an unbelievable training camp. I probably had 3 or 4 goals during training camp, a couple fights. I was feeling awesome. Quinville was loving me. He kind of, let me know I'd be playing more and maybe focus a little bit less on fighting and more on actually playing. I was stoked about that. So first game, the banner night, they raised the banner, Stanley Cup banner from the year before. They had the cup there, introduced us all one by one. I had all my family there. Wild just experience, not only to win the cup and then, get your ring and all that stuff, but then to see the banner go up and, your name's tied to that forever. So again, come out, boys are fired up. I'm fired up. Very first shift, I score. And that's my first official, I guess, NHL point and goal. And I went berserk. It's by far the hardest I've ever sallied on a goal. I really, not that I had too many chances to do it, but I really didn't ever celebrate all that crazy. I loved it because I didn't get to do it much. I loved scoring when it did happen. But this time something came over me and I went nuts. I think I scooped the ice. I slammed into the glass. I was so fired up. But it was so for maybe 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure I was leading the league in goals. So I was pretty, and then Kaner scored not too far after. So I was like, all right, that lasted long, but I'll take it. I'll take it for 10 minutes. I was the league's leading goal scorer. So.
Yeah. Well, going back really quick to your playoff goal, I don't know if you've actually seen the broadcast from it, but we actually watched it the other day. Oh my God, yeah. Pat Foley is the most surprised person in the entire building. God bless his soul.
I was gonna say that he actually is. So again, it was kind of a nothing play. I was pretty far out and threw one on net and snuck it in. He was in the middle of talking about something, and I'm pretty sure he debated not even acknowledging the goal and continuing his conversation. But I'm pumped that he did. But no, yeah, you're totally right. He was just as surprised as I was.
That's hysterical. That is hysterical. And I was actually at the game against Washington when you scored, and I was there with a couple of buddies. We were in the standing room, and we all placed bets on who's going to get the first goal of the game. And you scored, and we were all like, "Who? What the fuck? Who would have thought? What is going on?" That was the long odds on that one. Nobody should have taken me as a flyer. But actually, the crazy thing was, I'll never forget this. Before the game, in the room, we're all obviously very excited, and we're all in the room, and some of the boys were talking about, I don't know, somebody's like, I think so-and-so's got the first goal. So they're saying out names, and Brandon Saad he's sitting across the room from me, and he, for whatever reason, said something about Bollig's got it. And I was like, all right, cool. You're probably wrong, but I'll take it. At least I get the vote of confidence out of you. And then, no joke, first shift, 20 seconds into my shift, I scored. And when I got back to the bench, I'm like, man, I think you get an assist on that. You weren't even on the ice. That's
so
hilarious.
It's definitely just being under the pressure of Saad just pushing you towards it.
For sure.
That's hysterical.
It was cool, though. Yeah, it was awesome.
You've mentioned Quenneville a couple of different times. What was it like playing underneath somebody who's as revered as Joel Quenneville is?
I honestly loved everything about playing for Q. I grew up, and I remember him being with the Blues. I think he was the assistant coach there for a while, and then I believe became the whatever his career was with the Blues. I remembered him for sure. And then obviously, coming. I signed with the Hawks after my sophomore year in 2010, and then they actually won it that year, the first time, or not, but the first time in however many years. And so it was pretty cool to, obviously I wasn't up with the team. I had finished my season with Rockford, and then went back to college and finished all that. So it was cool to be a part of it, to see them do it. And then the next year, having the cup at training camp and that type of thing, my first professional season. But Q was always so awesome to me. He absolutely, like, I guess, he loved the way I played. And I think he could tell that, he was one of the first coaches, well, surely one of my first coaches professionally that had the confidence in me to do a little bit more than just fight people. And he made that pretty clear. But when I was first called up, I was trying to make my mark one way and one way only. And I was trying to fight everyone I could. And he loved it, man. He was so stoked about it. He was an awesome guy to me. All the boys loved him, to my knowledge. I don't know of anyone that disliked the guy. He was not only, and he's a guy that you don't find this too often. He's a guy that played, I think, over 600 NHL games, and then has coached however many, a million, I think. But so he knows both sides of it, and that's the type of guy that can relate to all the, can relate as a player's coach and can relate to the guys, but then also obviously is stern and does what needs to be done and says what needs to be said. So a guy like that, I learned a lot from. I grew a lot as a player and a person, like playing under somebody like that. And he also, it wasn't only him. We had two amazing assistants in Mike Kitchen and Jamie Compon, and just those guys both, again, had a lot of experience in the NHL, both as players and coaches. And we had a great group of coaches and staff with the Hawks my time here. And man, I was just super lucky. I couldn't say enough good stuff about Quenneville and the rest of the staff. And I'm super lucky to have been a part of that. And still, when I see Joel randomly, it's still the same vibe. He's super awesome to me and very welcoming and very personable. So he's, not only did he know what he was talking about, he was also an entertaining guy, and everyone seemed to get along with him pretty well.
Definitely. So yeah, you talked about how, you're coming up and, your mindset is to make your name out there. You got to fight. You mentioned your fights with Reeves being like absolutely epic for you. Was there another guy out there that you kind of saw as like this big time rival for you?
He would probably be the one that I considered a rival, but there was other guys, that I fought Kyle Clifford a couple times on LA. I think he's dialed it back now. He realized he had more to offer than doing that. So he's, a bit more of a player than I probably ever was. But somebody like Brian McGrattan, for instance, I only fought him once, but I was equally scared and excited about that fight just because of him being him and knowing the type of fights he was in before and what he had done in the league for so long. I actually ended up playing with him for a couple years in Calgary. Unbelievable guy. So that was pretty sweet. And somebody, if you guys remember Patrick Bordelot, who was on Colorado for a couple years, I fought him a few times in the minors. And then I'm not sure if we ever did in the NHL. I think we did once or twice, actually. And he was another tough guy. And somebody like Luke Gazdic, for instance, I fought a few times in the minors, and maybe once or twice in the NHL. I don't think we ever locked up in the NHL, but some guys like that, you find in the minors, you find a lot more mutants down there in the minors and guys that will literally just knock your block off and not think twice about it. And then, when you get to the NHL, the fighters that make it to the NHL are ones that, especially nowadays, that have figured out how to add a little bit more to their game. So I would say Reeves would be the one that I fought the most. And if I had to pick a rival, I suppose that would be him. But, it was just pretty wild to, for me, I kind of got into fighting and hockey like randomly. I was at a tryout when I was in high school for a junior B team, and this was my first ever fight. Literally had zero experience, and I was bigger. And one of the guys that was also trying up with the team had been in this junior B league and was a fighter and well known, I guess, at that level. So honestly, I was like, all right, let's see how this goes. I fought him, did very well, like shocked myself, beat him up. He actually wanted to fight me again. I beat him up again in that exact same tryout. And then probably a week later, So after that, I'm like, all right, I guess we might have something here. And then a week later, I tried out there were two junior B teams in the St. Louis area at the time. The one I had already tried out for, and then there was a better one that was actually they won like 4 national championships in a row. I was on the team for a year. We won the national championship that year, but I tried out for that team as well, like a week later. And their fighter, I think people had maybe heard, I have no idea. Their fighter was there again and had something to say. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. 1-punch knockout, broke his nose, like busted him up. And I'm telling you, like, no joke, like 1 punch right in the middle of his face, just dropped him. And he literally, I'll never forget, because I became buddies with him. We played together that year and became buddies with him. He looked up to me and he was like, and said, holy shit. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what happened. Like, so I quickly realized that this was something I could do. And ultimately, I wouldn't suggest it by any means, people doing it now. Even when I was playing, guys that probably had no business fighting would ask me if I would work with them after practice, and I would every time, but always with the intent to just teach them how to protect themselves. I'm like, man, it takes a special breed to go out there and do that, to go out there and fight guys on fucking hard. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this. Hard ice. You're on skates. Anything can happen in a hockey fight, and you can get badly hurt at any time. I was fortunate enough to, have that not happen to me, but they're just risking a lot. And so I always would suggest, if that's not your bag, if it doesn't come naturally and you're not just naturally tough and know how to handle yourself and also probably more importantly know how to take a punch, I would surely not suggest it. But for whatever reason, I think always just growing up, I always had that just aggressive kind of mentality and demeanor, and wrestling around with my dad, my buddies, whatever it may be. But so I think that suited me well. And ultimately, no joke, that was really the reason I made the NHL I really probably even made the professional level and then ultimately made it to the NHL, because I was able to provide that while being able to get around the ice, throw my weight around, the odd goal here and there. But yeah, that was really what got me there. And ultimately, I think was what had me stick in the NHL for the years that I did.
Svechnikov probably could have used your advice there in the playoffs, I think.
Who's that?
Svechnikov out in Carolina when he got one punch by Ovi.
See, that's what I'm saying, man. That when guys don't have it and they just want to do it just to show, to prove something, or just to add that to their game, I would not suggest that. You can get hurt just like that. Like that kid, he might still be feeling it. I'm not sure he's able to brush his hair yet.
Was there anybody that you didn't fight that you really wanted to, not maybe because you out of hate, but kind of to be like, oh shit, man, I actually went toe to toe with this guy? What's up, guys? As you know, the show is brought to you by DraftKings, and new customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. Bet just $5 to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinem.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Kansas, call 1-800-247-00. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort, on West Virginia, gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. All games regulated by West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly in partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown's Race in Connecticut. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after insurance. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in require max bet $50. 10 plus leg required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms. Even if you're not going on vacation, summer is all about a vacation state of mind. Whether I want to listen to Luke Combs on repeat or just need to retreat inside my own head for a bit, I love creating my own summer soundtrack by popping in my Raycon wireless earbuds. There's so much going on all summer. Sometimes you need some upbeat music to pump you up before you see people, or to stay calm with some guided meditation. I love my Raycon headphones for, listening to my country playlist up on the lake, or, any of the great podcasts from the Hockey Podcast Network. Just get to hear all my hockey news. Let me tell you right now, Raycons are the best way to listen. Use earbud tap functions to toggle between 3 customizable sound profiles, noise isolation, and awareness mode. Raycons have a 32-hour battery life, including 8 hours of playtime, so you can listen to what you want when you want for a really long time. They come with custom gel tips for the most comfortable in-ear fit. They start at half the price of other premium audio brands, but they sound just as good. And Raycon comes with a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose. Create your own soundtrack with Raycon. Right now, WCB podcast listeners can get 15% off Raycon order at buyraycon.com/THPN. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to save 15% off on Raycons. Buyraycons.com/THPN.
Nobody comes to mind. And as far as as far as my mentality now has entirely changed. I think since I started dating my wife and ultimately got married, I became super soft. But before I was like, I will not say no ever. I will fight anybody that I can, and I do not care who it is. If it's somebody that I think's way tougher than me, then maybe I'll fight a little more defensively. But I'm going to try to fight anybody. And so to start, it was literally, it was anyone. And like for Mike Rupp, who I fought, and I'm just trying to think of a couple other bigger guys. Luckily for me, there were guys that were out of the league. I think I played against Colton Orr one time, super, super tough individual that I never fought him. Luckily for me, guys like that were at the end of their careers or had just kind of retired. Fortunately, I missed guys like LaRock and those type of guys because, the game when I was there, it has since changed even more. But when I was in the league, had changed drastically as far as fighting goes from 5-10 years prior. So it continues to evolve. I know that's a pretty common thing and common topic among, people in the hockey world. But, I think I got in a good time to where, there was still a good amount of fighting, but, most of the guys that were there doing it still had skill and were able to play, and they weren't necessarily the guys sitting there on the bench for 58 out of the 60 minutes and they get 2 minutes of playing time and their only job is to go fight the other heavyweight. So luckily I was in a time where the fighting was still very valuable, but more so from a perspective of, protecting your teammates, shifting momentum, that type of thing. Which is, like I said, ultimately why I stuck around and why, you gain that respect from your teammates that I think I still have, because still when I see them, those type of guys, when I see Hawks guys around town or at events that we go to or whatever, it's, it's still the exact same relationship. You can tell that there's that level of respect just for, being willing to protect them, put your body on the line for somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you were right in that middle period where the fighters were starting to be able to play the game as well.
Absolutely.
But a lot of the fighters are known to be huge locker room guys. Like that's another reason that they're able to stick around the big club. I mean, what were you like in the locker room, and what was the locker room like in the Hawks dressing room with like Taze and Kane, and obviously you had Shaw along your side. I'm sure you guys had.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to come up with Shawzy. We actually played. That's a guy that. His story is pretty wild. That guy was playing juniors and was just a couple weeks, I think, away from quitting hockey altogether and going to work in probably manual labor somewhere in his hometown. And then the Hawks took him, drafted him late, and he gave it a shot. He came in his first year pro. He was on an AHL deal, a minor league contract, which isn't all that common, especially for draft picks and players that ultimately end up playing in the NHL. It's not that common. And so he was on an AHL deal and he came in fighting, scoring, doing the exact same stuff he does now. And ultimately earned a contract with the Hawks. He got called up and never been back. So I was, I came up with a guy like that. So, myself, Jimmy Hayes, Shaw, Nick Liddy, Brandon Bollig when he came out of juniors, we were all kind of ended up with, we were with Rockford and then kind of called up around the same time on the Hawks. So it was cool that we had a group that we really knew each other pretty well and had that bond. But then you get in the room and you see, like you said, you got a Taves and a Kane who, even though they're both younger than me, they've obviously been in the league for years and have been doing what they've been doing at such a high level for so long. And so you get in there, you see guys like that. And I know one of you guys is a big Hossa fan. So you see Hossa and Dunk and Seabrook and all those guys that you're just like, what in the hell am I doing here with these dudes? Do I belong here with these dudes? Like,
can I get you some water, a banana, anything?
I know. Hey, get you a towel or anything like that. Like, can I help you out? Anyway, it was just crazy because one, not only do you obviously know them from a hockey standpoint, from a player standpoint, you respect the hell out of what they bring to the game of hockey and their skill level, because you really don't get to respect how skilled and how hard they work until you see them in practice. I tell people all the time, for instance, somebody like Kaner, you obviously super skilled guy when you see him play in games, but you really don't get a true feel for it until you see him in practice, embarrassing all of us and working his absolute bag off and just doing everything. And there's a reason you quickly find out. I tell people all the time, I just luckily kind of went into it with the mindset of acting like a sponge and just trying to soak up everything I could from these guys. Cause you see the people I just mentioned, Taves, Kane, Hossa, Keith, Seabrook, those type of guys, Crawford, even in that, you see these guys and again, not only see their skill level, but how hard they work, and you quickly realize, okay, that's exactly why they made it to this level. And that's exactly why they are as good as they are. Not just because you see plenty of guys with natural skill and natural talent that don't make it, or, they have a cup of coffee in the NHL and they're done, or whatever it is. But these guys are not only at the top of their game, winning championships, making a fair amount of money, but they're working their tail off and really earning it. That's the coolest part. And that's when you really respect, come to respect guys like that. And when you see they earned it. They weren't, maybe they were given a few, some leeway as far as just being drafted a certain number, whatever it may be, but they earned it, man. And there's a reason that they've stuck around and those type of guys have had, sustained success at that level, because and I was very fortunate to play with so many guys on the Hawks, and then and then the other organizations I played for. There was guys like that on Calgary, and then San Jose and Nashville, a few other organizations I played for, and it's awesome as somebody like me who literally had to fight for everything I was ever given, to see guys like that aren't just coasting once they already made it to the NHL. You see them continually working on their craft and continually improving, themselves within the game, and it does a lot. And it does a lot for a younger guy to see that, and ultimately that's a huge reason that the Hawks were so successful for those few years, and it looks like they'll get back to that level soon, I hope. So it's no wonder once you're in there, it makes total sense why they won, three cups in whatever 5 or 6 year span, whatever it was, and continue to be one of the most sought after organizations in the league. The United Center's full all the time. The buzz around this city still and probably always for the Hawks is pretty awesome to see. And even I do some youth hockey stuff for them during the winter, and I do events and signings and that type of stuff for them. And there's still so many people that are so pumped to even see me, let alone the current players and all that. So you could tell that there's that huge level of respect in the city among the Hawks. And like I said, you quickly realize why, because of the hard work that the players, the staff, the management, that all those people put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once they won that first cup, it was that was it. It was their city to take over, and it was a fun ride watching them. And yeah, we're excited for the season coming up. Do you got any good after that cup win? Any good stories that come to mind, about certain guy or just the team together? Just it had to be a crazy time coming from Boston.
it was absolutely nuts. So yeah, the coolest part, short of the parade is very cool. No, to put it lightly, it's just an unbelievable experience. But the coolest thing was, well, not the coolest, because you get to lift the cup. It comes time, and I was a younger guy, new to the league, so I was towards the end of the line, but does not matter. Once you see that cup being skated around the rink and hoisted above guys' heads, and whether it was their first, their second, or their fifth, you know what I'm saying? The guys were equally as excited. It's just because it takes so much work from all of the boys and all the staff, and it just takes a collective effort to win that. And playing 4 rounds of best of 7 hockey when guys are trying to kill you every second of the game, it's crazy. That's why I always say playoff hockey is just on a whole another level from regular season. So when you finally get to do that, we all get to hoist the cup and skate around, and we enjoy it. We take our photos with our family, and then finally we bring it into the locker room, and it's just the players, the coaches, and the management, and obviously the equipment staff, the medical staff, that type of thing. So only people involved with the team, and that was something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. You walk in, and there's obviously buckets and troughs full of champagne and beer and whatever you want, but you walk in and just everyone is so elated, everyone's so absolutely stoked. And the coolest thing that to me was that once you're in there, everyone is on the exact same level. Nobody was GM or fourth liner or first liner or head coach. Everyone was the exact same level. And luckily the Hawks made us all this really, really cool book, the 17 seconds book. They might even sell it. I have no idea, but we have this awesome book that they gave to all of us, and all the photos of it. And they have photos of every single stage of winning the cup, and during playoffs, and then the party after, and then the parade and all that stuff. But there's an awesome photo in there of Stan Bowman, the GM. I think he's drinking out of the cup at the time, so somebody's kind of holding it for me, and I'm kind of standing above him on a bench with, I think, Kaner and Shaw, and I think one other guy, and I'm dumping a beer like on his head, and he's loving it. He is loving it, and that's what I'm saying. That as soon as and guys are spraying champagne on like the president, John McDonough, or Quinville, or whatever it is, and everyone is so damn happy and just loving it. And although it's super cool to experience all this with your family, there weren't once you win it, there weren't too many times where you're kind of alone with the boys and the cup. So there was only very few times that happened after, and this was one of them. And so we were all in there just having a time, and then doing the things, having a cigar, whatever it was, just celebrating as however you saw fit. And then that was a very memorable experience. And then after that, you hop on the plane, we fly back, and what's also cool, you get on the plane and it's the exact same thing. Everyone's happy, boozing, drinking out of the cup, spraying champagne all over the plane. I'm sure the flight attendants love that, but it was,
yeah.
Oddly enough, the cup's getting passed around, and so guys are not the Stewart, whatever airline it was, but we're not abiding by the regulations of a typical flight. No,
right.
Guys aren't sitting down, guys aren't buckled up and with their oxygen mask above their head. Yeah, very buckled up. So oddly enough, the cup's getting passed around, and I happen to be sitting towards the back talking to one of the fellas, and whoever had it just happened to sit it in my lap, and then instantly the plane took off. So I was literally in my seat holding and hugging the Stanley Cup as the plane takes off the ground. I was like, this is badass. I have no idea how this happened, but I will take it. So, we're obviously having a blast and doing our thing. And then we land, and again, I'll never forget, we land in Chicago, and you see it kind of as we're coming in, but we land, and there was fire trucks, police trucks, maybe whatever else, ambulance, whatever it was. But the fire trucks were spraying in an arch, so they were spraying towards each other, but in an arch. And we landed the plane under this arch of fire, the fire hose water, whatever the hell it is. But they're spraying this arch, so we land on the runway in the middle of the cop cars, police cars, fire trucks, all that stuff. So that was absolutely insane. And then once the plane stops, there's hundreds of people on the tarmac. I have no idea where these people came from or who they were or why the hell are they standing on this tarmac as a giant plane is pulling up. But so then we get off the plane, they go insane. We end up taking it to Harry Carey's right there by the airport, and then finally we hop on a bus and bring it downtown, and ended up doing a couple. I think we went to one bar that night, the Scout. The guys that own it are good buddies with a bunch of the Hawks guys, and so they brought it there and they left it. They said whenever we will keep this open. I think we got there at like maybe 6 a.m. Like we obviously
Jesus.
played in Boston and then just continued. And so we got, and they told us, they're like, hey, it's all on us. We'll leave this open for however long. Like it wasn't open to the public. There were helicopters, like news helicopters following our bus around and seeing where we were going. It was just all such a cool experience. And luckily, this speaks to just how great the Hawks organization is. They chartered all of our families out to Boston. They flew a private plane for all the families and took them out to Boston so they could all experience this with us. And they come running on the ice. They, after we hoist the cup, and they get to experience that part. And then, obviously after going to Harry Carey's and then the Scout afterwards and just enjoying it. It was all the fellas and the families and just a wild experience. And then, after that, you really, like I said, you really don't get any other alone time with just the cup and the players. Cause after that you're just doing community events and taking it all over. And then you got the parade, which a couple million people are there, and so the entire experience is one that I'll never forget. And all those little experiences that go along with it, even getting to take the cup to like, I think at the time it was US Cellular where the Sox play, and then we got to take it to Wrigley. Yeah. So, I got to throw the first pitch at both of those places. And I don't know why they did this, but they let me sing the 7th inning stretch at Wrigley.
Yes.
So you just get to do cool shit like that. And it's just like, man, this is absolutely insane. Just some undrafted kid from middle of nowhere kind of Missouri that ended up on the Hawks team, and now with 0 points, right? And then I get to tag along with all these, with all this stuff, and like I said, it didn't change. Everyone is on the exact same level. Everyone feels like they contributed just as much, and everyone is, like I said, just equally as excited for each other. And it's just such a cool bonding experience that you kind of hope that you don't hope that everyone gets to experience it. Otherwise it wouldn't be as special as it is, but you do, because it's such an awesome life experience.
Definitely.
It's funny every year. It's like I can't believe it, but at the same time I can, on how hard the champion teams go after they win, after like all the playoffs that they played, the hardest hockey of their life. And it's like game 6, game 7, and you guys are leaving your bodies on the line, and then afterwards it's like I'll go for another 24 hours drinking. It's fine.
Now it's giddy up. Yeah, now it's now it's you switch into a different mode. But like you just said, it's a whole new ball game physically to play in the postseason and to play for that long, and then to party after once because that's what to go all that way and lose must just be the toughest thing ever, because you sacrifice so not only your body, but like your time and your emotions. You're obviously extremely invested in this. And so to come all the way to lose would be a bummer for sure. But man, was it awesome to be on the winning end of that, and all the really cool experiences that have come from it.
That's incredible. That was probably one of the better descriptions I think I've ever heard of what it feels like to win a Stanley Cup, to be quite honest with you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being on the show. I have one final question for you.
Sure.
And it was the first one that we thought of when we knew we were going to get you on the show. The stick handling video with Patrick Kane. First and foremost, was he nervous after he saw yours?
So the whole thing about this was so funny, because honestly, anytime fans or even other players that I played against, like after I did that video, I had so many guys come up to me at faceoffs the rest of that year that would be like, hey dude, that video was so funny. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, I'm gonna try to kill you here in 5 seconds, but all right, I appreciate it. but it was just so funny because so Kaner does that. He did it for Bauer. It was like a Bauer promo video. So he does it. We all see it. It came out and we all see it and we're like, what? I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, dude, they had to have sped this up. I'm like, did they? And he's like, honestly, I kind of thought the same thing, but they told me they did not speed this up. He's like, I don't think it's sped up. He's like, they could have been lying, but I don't think it was. I'm like, well, that's a little fucked. Like, I don't think I've ever seen like all the people that try to do these videos, man. And like, I honestly bet you there weren't too many mess ups that he did. Like, I bet it didn't take him that long. But so he does this video and we're all like, oh my God, all right, that's pretty wild. So I said something to our PR staff, I think the day I saw it or maybe the next day, whatever it was. I'm like, hey, like, and I don't even know why I thought of this, but it was my idea. I was like, hey, would you guys ever be interested in doing like a spoof of that? Like, that'd be kind of funny, no? And I was actually thinking they'd be like, all right, beat it, buddy. Like, you know, nobody wants to see you stick handling. And so I said that and they're like, oh, let's think about it. And we'll get back to you. I'm like, all right, that's a no. And then so the next day appreciate your time. But so maybe a day or two later, they come back jacked up. Like they were like, hey, are you still want to do that video? Let's do it. That'd be so funny. Can you come to the rink today after? I think we actually were in training camp. They're like, can you come to the rink today and do it? I'm like, well, all right. So something changed here. Somebody told you that we got to get this done. So I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it. So we go there and we were all just kind of thinking of funny ideas on how to spoof this thing. And so we just kind of started, you know, as you see, we just kind of started and, you know, I wasn't necessarily, people always ask, like, were you trying to be that terrible? Like, yeah, to an extent, for sure. Like, obviously I am not on the same level as he was and stick handling through these pucks. But, you know, that maybe the first stage, like with like 4 or 5 pucks out there, I can muck around in between there and do all right. But once it gets going, I'm like, all right, I do want this to be hilarious. So even like that one point I like fall and then they were asking, you know, different ideas. And we just ended up doing like the slide was my idea, like sliding through all them. I think one of them came up with the Snow Angel one that we did. And so we were just all kind of collectively and coming up with this what we were going to do. And they took a couple of shots. And then at the end, you know, I forget what he does. I think he picks the puck up on his stick and throws it at the camera to finish the video. And I was like, hey, like, what about, you know, obviously I like fight. How about I end up somehow in the stands and I'm like, I either punch the camera or whatever. I do something to like wrestle it down and they're like, oh, that'd be awesome. So then we, you know, it was a collaborative effort for sure. And man, we got done and I want to say they edited that thing either that day or the next day. And no joke, I just remember seeing it all over. Like, again, we were still in training camp. So it was all over, like TSN and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what in the hell? Like, this is like my first like viral type of thing. And I was like, what is going on here? And I'm not kidding you, man. Like, it seemed like every game another player was mentioning the video. And every time I met a fan, they talked about it and still people talk about it. So I'm like super stoked that I even asked to do it or even had the idea that, like I said, I never thought that, you know, that would even come to fruition, but it was just pretty cool to do it. And still, like I said, people will tweet me like gifts from it. And like people were asking me the other day about it. And so anytime I respond to it, it's like people just get so stoked. So that was one that I was pretty excited how it turned out.
It was hilarious how fast that thing came out. Because I remember thinking like, wow, that Kane video is hysterical. I'm like, I felt like it was 10 minutes later. I was like, fuck is Brandon Bollig doing this video? Like, what's going on? It
was quick. But yeah, like I said, they were like right away, we're like, I don't know about that. And then something changed and they were like, let's get this thing done. So yeah, it was go time. It was awesome.
Sounds like they definitely pitched it as their idea to somebody higher up, and they're like,
no question. No question. Somebody's collecting royalties off my idea.
That's hysterical. Well, like I said, I appreciate you.
We had a good time.
I appreciate you for being on so long. what are you doing nowadays? Anything planned?
Yeah, so the wife and I actually here any day now. We've been working on setting up a new business for ourselves. It's a kind of health and fitness business, and to launch where our website's like we got a meeting tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of go time after that. But we're about to launch here any day. But it's like I said, it's like a fitness platform. We had some low impact like resistance band stuff developed to be in this like kit that you can take anywhere in the world. Is basically like the traveling kind of on the go person that doesn't necessarily have 3 hours to go spend at a gym or even has a gym membership. We kind of manufacture these products to put in one kit that can be taken anywhere in the world and get a full body workout. Because I was a little skeptical at first when we had the idea, but my wife's a certified trainer, so she came up with these programs that people can purchase along with these products and take them anywhere. And I've been doing them, and it's awesome, man. Like I'm a full believer. I'd be on an infomercial for us if we had one. But it's pretty cool to do this with, not only to start a business, but to do it with my wife and have those experiences and kind of strengthen that, that bond you have with marriage and kind of starting something like that. I've become more and more passionate about. She was a Division I athlete. She played soccer at University of New Mexico in college, and has still, I'm definitely the second most athletic person in our household. So, seeing her kind of come up with this and having this dream, and then, once I retired, kind of jumping on board, we're super excited about it. It's called Dana Eve, DANNAHEVE is the website, and we're really, really excited about it. It's going to be launching in the next few days, and then down the line, like I mentioned, we're looking to maybe add a podcast, and we're looking to maybe do some apparel. We've been in some talks to do some athleisure, like Lululemon type of material apparel. And
damn, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
we'll definitely throw that.
yeah.
We'll definitely throw the website out there too for everybody listening in to start to check out for sure.
Yeah,
for
appreciate
sure.
that.
Well,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, it's been a long interview, so I appreciate you staying on for so long. But this was a great time. I really appreciate it.
All right, I'm glad you guys enjoyed. I had fun too.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have doubled the time, so we'd love to have you on and keep this going.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a little long-winded there, but yeah, we can do it again sometime.
Totally worth it. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. We wish you all the best moving forward.
All right, thanks. Same to you guys.
Thanks for listening to the WCB podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast. To connect with Jarom and Tanner, check out the boys at WCB Podcast on all social media. We'll see you next time.